Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the New York City Council hearing on the Committee on General Welfare. At this time, please silence all electronics and do not approach the dais. Again, please do not approach the dais. If you are testifying today or have any other questions or concerns, please contact the Sergeant at Arms. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, you may begin.
Thank you so much and good afternoon. Welcome to today's hearing. I'm Crystal Hudson, Chair of the General Welfare Committee, and my pronouns are she, her. Today we have 5 bills on our agenda. Intro 139, sponsored by Councilmember Tiffany Caban, requiring the Department of Social Services to provide a benefits interview confirmation notice. Intro 232, which I've sponsored in relation to shelter referrals and assessments for temporary housing assistance. Pre-considered introduction. Okay. By Councilmember Sean Abreu in relation to the DSS Commissioner coordinating with hospitals to distribute informational materials on certain weather events to patients and make services directly available to discharged patients during such events. And another pre-considered intro, also sponsored by Councilmember Abreu, in relation to the DSS Commissioner coordinating with hospitals to make certain supplies available to discharged patients during certain weather events. And finally, the last pre-considered introduction by Councilmember Lincoln Ressler, which would create an integrated and confidential data system to track all engagement with street homeless individuals. We are joined today by Council Members Abreu and Caban. Intro number 139 seeks to improve transparency of the benefits application process by making interview confirmation notices available to applicants. The 2 bills sponsored by Councilmember Abreu are a direct follow-up to our February 10th hearing on the city's recent response to Code Blue. These bills seek to provide certain supplies and information to individuals experiencing homelessness who are patients at hospitals during extreme weather emergencies. Councilmember Ressler's bill would strengthen coordination between street outreach teams, enhance data collection efforts, and provide policymakers with timelier and more accurate data on the state of street homelessness. Now into the final bill on our agenda. Currently, DHS requires that families with children produce 2 years of housing history in order to demonstrate their eligibility to enter into its shelter system. This requirement has proven to be onerous on families with children. My bill, Intro 232, seeks to reduce this administrative burden by shifting the requirement from 2 years of housing history to 1 year of housing history. The requirement creates an unnecessary barrier for those who are already in crisis and juggling so much. Families with children who are seeking to enter into a homeless shelter have already hit rock bottom. They are already facing chaotic and unstable living situations. To expect them to provide this type of documentation in order to qualify for shelter is to doubt their needs. Policies like this risk excluding the very families that the city's shelter system is meant to serve. If the ultimate goal is to reduce family homelessness, we have to change policies that may shut out the people they intend to help. We hope that today's hearing will effectively inform the final versions of the bills on our legislative agenda and that they ultimately serve to strengthen the city's social safety net for its most vulnerable populations. I want to conclude by thanking the committee staff for their work on this hearing, Aminta Kilawan, Penina Rosenberg, Justin Campos, and Elizabeth Childers Garcia, And I would also like to thank my staff, Andrew Wright and Elika Ruentan. I will now pass the mic to the other sponsors of bills on today's agenda, Councilmember Abreu, followed by Councilmember Caban.
Thank you, Chair Hudson. For years, structural gaps have left our most vulnerable neighbors exposed to extreme weather and without access to the services they need. After the recent freezing Arctic winter storms that saw some of our neighbors across the city tragically lose their lives to the cold, including a man found on a park bench with hospital discharge papers just days old, it is clear that need persists to do all that we can to protect our most vulnerable neighbors. We'd like to be clear, this issue is something that has pre-existed this administration. Extreme weather is becoming more frequent, and with the winter behind us now, we must be prepared for the dangers of extreme heats in the months ahead as well. The legislation we are hearing today will strengthen coordination between hospitals and the Department of Homeless Services so that individuals potentially experiencing homelessness are not discharged into life-threatening conditions without the necessary information or support. By ensuring hospitals have the resources and materials to connect patients to warming centers, cooling centers, and other life-saving services during Code Blue and Code Red alerts, as well as providing them with critically important supplies like blankets or cooling wipes, we can close dangerous gaps in our safety net and help keep vulnerable New Yorkers safe. Thank you to the General Welfare Committee and the Chair, Hudson, for hearing these bills and for your consideration. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Councilmember Abreu. Councilmember Caban.
Thank you, Chair Hudson, and to the members of the General Welfare Committee for the opportunity to speak today about Intro 139 of 2026. This legislation is a straightforward but still important step toward improving transparency and accountability in our city's public benefit system. Intro 139 would require DSS to provide applicants with a confirmation notice after completing an eligibility or recertification interview for benefits like cash assistance or SNAP. For our constituents seeking assistance, the interview process is a key step towards accessing life-saving support from New York City. At a time when the federal government has launched a full-blown assault on America's already anemic welfare system, adding transparency and clarity to the process of applying for benefits is crucial for us. This bill addresses administrative gaps in the benefit application process, gaps that so often cause our constituents problems as they apply for benefits they are entitled to. These may seem like small administrative details, but they can make a significant difference for New Yorkers trying to navigate a complex and often frustrating system. Giving beneficiaries clear documentation helps applicants track their cases, resolve disputes, and advocate for themselves when delays or errors occur. Ultimately, this legislation is about strengthening trust and transparency in how our city delivers the benefits that millions of our people rely on. I look forward to the passage of this bill and to work with DSS and HRA advocates and my colleagues to ensure this policy is implemented effectively and helps our city's residents access the support that they need. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Caban. And now, the Committee Counsel Aminta Kilawan will administer the oath to the administration.
Now, in accordance with the rules of the council, I will administer the affirmation to the witnesses from the mayoral administration. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Cassandra White, Akila Winston, Naira Johnson, and Rebecca Chu. Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Akila Winston, and I serve as the Interim Chief of Intake Assessment and Operational Capacity at the New York City Department of Homeland Services. I am accompanied today by my colleagues, Naira Johnson, Assistant Commissioner of Director Health and Homeland Services Integration, DHS, Rebecca Chu, Chief Program Officer, Human Resources Administration, and Cassandra White, Deputy Commissioner, Street Homelessness Solutions Division within DHS. As the breadth of this hearing encompasses the work of both agencies, DHS and HRA, within the Department of Social Services, DSS. I would like to thank Committee Chair Hudson, the members of the Committee on General Welfare, and the bill sponsors for holding today's hearing and inviting us to speak. We will speak to each of the introductions by being heard in turn today. We would like to brief the Council on existing work being done by DHS and to highlight important considerations and concerns we believe the sponsors, members of the community, and general welfare, the broader Council, and stakeholders should keep in mind in assessing and amending these introductions. Introduction 139. Introduction 139, sponsored by Councilmember Caban, would require the Department of Social Services, DSS, to provide confirmation notice in hard copy or electronically to applicants of public assistance regarding their benefits interview. The notice would include, at minimum, a confirmation number, the date, time, and location of the interview, or the agency phone number from which the interview was conducted, if the interview was via telephone. We recently provided testimony regarding this legislation during the General Welfare Committee hearing on December 3rd, when it was last noticed by the Council as Introduction 1430 of 2025, and we're happy to speak on it again today. We support providing applicants with the information they need as they proceed through the benefits application process. If I may briefly review the current process for interviewing for cash assistance and supplemental nutrition assistance program, application, and recertification interviews. The process proceeds along two tracks. One track is for linked cash assistance and SNAP applications and recertifications, and the other track is exclusively for cash applications. For CA, cash assistance, and SNAP applications and recertifications, the process is as follows. The client submits an application or recertification and calls for an on-demand interview. At the end of the interview, the system automatically generates the interview kept status notification and the interview receipt form FIA 1173. The interview kept status notification is available on Access HRA for SNAP immediately. The interview receipt form FIA 1173 is placed in the print to mail queue to be mailed and is also electronically added to the case file for both SNAP and CA. The interview receipt FIA 1173 is physically mailed within 1 to 5 business days. The interview receipt form FIA 1173 is available on Access HRA when it has completed the print to mail queue. Once mailed, the document becomes available in OneViewer or Access HRA. For cash assistance application and recertification interviews, the interview status is not currently available online. We would have to build the functionality to add interview status to our system. For cash assistance, our assessment thus far is that 90 days for implementation would not be sufficient to make adjustments to information technology systems to implement the change this proposal requires. DSS has tried to implement a version of what this bill would require with Form FIA 1173, which confirms certain contact with HRA and includes relevant data points such as the client's name, case number, and the description of the type of contact. We would like to have further discussion with the Council about the scope of programs covered and also suggest revisions to the data points required under the legislation, which are at variance with current operations. Introduction 232, sponsored by Councilmember Hudson, would reduce the required housing history from 2 years to 1 year in order for families with children to demonstrate their eligibility for entry into the Department of Homeless Services shelter system. It would additionally require DHS staff to upload all documents relevant to an application's housing history to a digital case record and communicate with an applicant about any missing documents through electronic methods. This bill would give families with children at least 30 days in temporary shelter pending the determination of their eligibility for shelter, subject to the approval of the State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. This bill would also require DHS to create an informational pamphlet listing examples of documents that could demonstrate proof of housing history and ensure that such pamphlet is posted online and distributed to families with children at the PATH Intake Center. We support efforts to enhance services to families with children households and to streamline their efforts to apply and obtain temporary housing assistance. As drafted, this bill presents potential concerns and may trigger a significant increase in cost of providing temporary housing assistance. The bill is proposing a change to the temporary housing assistance application and eligibility determination processes that are standardized by state regulation and New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, OTDA policy. As this bill recognizes, THA is extensively regulated by OTDA. For that reason, DSS is concerned about alterations to eligibility requirements. By promising at least 30 days of conditional emergency THA, there is a concern that we are risking increased length of stays for households that are ultimately deemed ineligible for THA. And regardless of when DHS completes an eligibility determination, New York State does not reimburse New York City for THA provided to a household that is ultimately deemed ineligible. Currently, DHS is generally able to make eligibility determinations within 15 days. Exceptions to this occur under various circumstances, including when a household is not cooperating with the evidentiary requirements. The 15-day duration limit allows DHS to budget temporary shelter not reimbursed by the state in a somewhat predictable way. The 2-year housing history requirement, which was the result of extensive negotiations and compromises between OTDA and advocates, help DHS strike a delicate balance between creating a predictable cost structure for DHS while also helping the families who need it most. Note that the 2-year housing history requirement also provides DHS with a more holistic understanding of clients' circumstances and the opportunity to afford families with children family mediation services encompassing a 2-year housing history time period. Family mediation serves as a crucial tool that assists families with avoiding shelter altogether. We want to avoid unintentionally reducing families' mediation's capacity to assist clients in finding an alternative to shelter. Overall, reducing the housing history requirement and extending the duration of emergency placement will extend the time frame of emergency housing for households regardless of their eligibility for THA. Shelter capacity across the city would need to be increased for families with children as a result of this bill. Fiscally, initial estimates note that reducing the required housing history from 2 years to 1 year would cost close to $169 million per year. The extension of conditional THA from 15 days to 30 days would be over $7 million per year. DHS currently publishes pertinent information on its publicly accessible website about acceptable evidence for proven housing history and the eligibility determination process. Producing paper pamphlets containing the same information would incur publication and translation costs. However, the agency is supportive of the council proposal to ensure that information is available to ensure applicants are informed about the process. The bill requirement to create a digital case record system that is accessible to DHS applicants and clients via a secure website and applications for phones and mobile devices has a costly impact, including building out a client-facing digital case record system and in regular IT maintenance. Further, the bill does not account for the time required to plan, design, and/or alter existing systems, test and launch the digital case record functionality the bill requires. Given these considerations, we do not believe this bill proposes an advisable course of action at this time. Preconsidered Introduction 1352, sponsored by Councilmember Abreu, would require the Commission of Homeless Services, in consultation with relevant New York City agency heads, to develop informational materials directed to hospitals pertaining to a code blue or code red alert. The materials would include information on agency resources during these alerts for individuals experiencing homelessness, recommended hospital procedures during these alerts, and contact information of the Department of Homeless Services and other relevant agencies. The commissioner would have to conduct outreach to provide hospitals with the materials for distribution to patients. The bill would also require the commissioner to make best efforts to coordinate with the hospitals during these alerts to identify discharged patients experiencing homelessness, assess what DHS resources they need, and make the resources available to them. Example of DHS resources include direction and transportation to shelters and warming and cooling centers. We are strongly in support of all efforts to engage our unsheltered neighbors and help them keep safe, especially during the extreme weather conditions that lead to code red and code blue alerts. DHS has had a long-standing partnership with New York City hospitals to mutually engage in care coordination activities for purposes of assisting individuals who have been in shelter or require DHS shelter. In the run-up to code blue and code red seasons, an agency communication is sent to all local hospitals via the Greater New York Hospital Association and New York City Health and Hospital Central Office, which provides a reminder about the impending code blue season. Additionally, the DSS Chief Medical Officer sends a letter to local hospitals highlighting the impending cold blue season and the role for hospitals in such season. The communication asks that hospitals cooperate in allowing unsheltered individuals to stay in emergency rooms or other designated areas to the extent possible without being registered, unless they present with a medical need or access to see a medical provider. DHS is also consistently DHS also consistently reminds hospitals not to discharge patients during Code Blue without having a DHS placement. Regardless of season, DSS has had longstanding guidance, which is the institutional referral procedure on hospital discharge, which is applicable at all times. This guidance was developed in close collaboration with the Greater New York Hospital Association, New York City Health and Hospitals, and private hospitals. Hospitals have been trained on the procedure and refer over 4,000 individuals a year who are either new to DHS or who have not been in DHS shelter for over a year. Hospitals are well aware of this procedure, and DHS communicates frequently with hospitals regarding this procedure and individuals referred via the procedure and provides reminders and training. In order to further support hospitals, DHS has also created a dedicated hospital shelter referral line, which is shared on the institutional referral form. DHS has greatly enhanced this referral program in recent years to ensure that clients are linked to care prior to discharge, including to Safe Options Support, SOS teams, mental health teams, and New York City Health and Hospitals safety net clinics, and has implemented a fast track program for the most complex clients to enter the most appropriate shelter for their needs. DHS also works with hospitals on diversion efforts to help clients with recent housing history to return to their housing. The referral process includes the completion and submission of the institutional referral form to DHS via encrypted email. The form includes pertinent demographic and clinical information, as well as the patient's written consent to be referred to a DHS site. The patient's consent is a crucial component of the referral process. It is what allows DHS to engage in care coordination in the first place. DHS reviews these documents within 24 hours, 48 hours if the referral form is from a nursing home. And as part of this procedure, DHS first determines if the patient is medically appropriate for shelter based on their physical and mental health characteristics, their ability to perform their ADLs, which is activities of daily living, and available resources to serve the patient's needs. Second, DHS works with the hospital to identify a placement within the system which meets the client's needs and, where possible, preferences. The vast majority of referrals are medically appropriate for shelter. We encourage hospitals to provide transportation and/or an accompaniment for most complex clients. An important note here is that the Code Blue communication covers clients seen in the emergency department or admitted and being discharged. The formal institutional referral process only applies to persons admitted to the hospital. DHS' main objective, as always, is to assist the most vulnerable New Yorkers in accessing shelter and services. We, along with our partners at New York City Health and Hospitals, do all that is possible under the law to offer homeless individuals accessing hospitals a way to connect to services and housing and to begin transition into permanent housing. At DHS, we are always willing to implement new ideas and procedures which would further assist our clients in moving along the trajectory towards permanent housing. As such, we are eager to have further discussion with the sponsor and council about the contours of this bill. Preconsidered Introduction 1353. Preconsidered Introduction 1353, sponsored by Councilmember Abreu, would require the Commissioner of Homeless Services to make best efforts to coordinate with hospitals to make available supplies to patients experiencing homelessness upon their discharge from the hospital. The supplies during a Code Blue alert would include a Mylar thermal blanket, a set of hand warmers, a winter hat, and a pair of gloves. The supplies during the Code Red alert would include a Mylar thermal blanket, a reusable water bottle filled with cold water, cooling wipes, and a bandana. At DHS, we believe the best outcomes for our street homeless clients are achieved through connecting clients to housing and services. As discussed above, DHS has a robust institutional referral procedure designed to allow clients to seamlessly transition from their hospital bed to a safe shelter or safe haven bed. As also noted above, However, hospitals are only able to contact DHS about patients who are experiencing homelessness if the client consents to such contact. This limitation does lead to concerns about how DHS would be able to implement this bill. If New York City Health and Hospitals contacts us about a patient who is experiencing unsheltered homelessness, we would do everything possible to connect that client with a bed. If the client does not allow New York City Health and Hospitals to contact us, we would not have a way to connect the client to a bed and also could not hand out the supplies mandated in this bill. The second concern has to deal with the volume of supplies we would need to give New York City Health and Hospitals and how we would track such supplies. We could give New York City Health and Hospitals 50 hand warmers, gloves, hats, and blankets, but we don't know if they have room to store such items, how they would track the items being handed out, and how they would prevent the items from going astray. In light of these limitations and the fact that New York City Health and Hospitals also hands out client clothing and warm weather gear, it might be best to continue working in coordination to attain the goals of this legislation. That being said, we would be happy to continue having conversations with the sponsor and the council at large regarding how to meet the goals of this bill. Preconsidered Introduction 0008. Sponsored by Councilmember Ressler, would require the Department of Homeless Services to create a mobile application available to DH staff and contractors that do street outreach work that allows real-time tracking and reporting of all engagement with street homeless individuals. This bill would also require DHS to report to the council quarterly the total number of unsheltered homeless persons disaggregated by the location where they were first engaged by staff, the total number of unsheltered homeless persons who accepted services during the reporting period, disaggregated by the type of service, and the aggregate number of engagements that resulted in temporary placements or permanent housing. For several years, DHS has been working to improve the digital case management systems for the unhoused population so that DHS outreach staff and contracted providers performing outreach services can enter, save, and access data and information in real time about the unhoused population. The initial planning for the creation of a mobile app, essentially an upgrade to the current, which is essentially an upgrade to the current Street Smart application, is already underway. Street Smart is the database system of record used by DHS and contracted outreach providers for the street homeless population. It captures engagement and interaction data and follow-up notes on unsheltered individuals encountered in streets and subways. Once information is entered in Street Smart and a record is created, it becomes available to all DHS staff and contracted providers who have Street Smart access. DSS is supportive of efforts to improve and enhance case management systems and data collection practices so that we can better analyze and report on needs and trends for the unhoused population. We would like to work further with the council to ensure there is alignment between what the bill would require DHS to do and what data DHS can actually collect, produce, and report on, and explain the technical implications of this bill. We appreciate the opportunity to testify today and welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilmember Ong via Zoom and Council members Mealy, Aviles, Nurse, Brewer, Morano. We will get into the questions. Regarding Intro 139, after an applicant currently has an interview with HRA, what type of confirmation is given to them that they completed the interview? And is confirmation provided in writing or electronically?
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. So clients who apply and complete their benefits interview, whether it's in connection with an application or a recertification interview, both for cash assistance and SNAP, are provided a notification both electronically and in writing. And additionally, on Access HRA for SNAP applicants, there's an interview kept flag that pops up. But across the board,
Sorry, which type of flag? An interview?
kept flag.
Oh,
Yes. But there's a written notification in the form of an 1173 form that serves as proof for the client that their interview has been completed.
Thank you. Thank you. We've also been joined by Councilmember Ressler. Okay, I think you just sort of addressed this a little bit, but does Access HRA currently have the capacity to provide electronic or hard copy confirmations to public assistance clients after their benefits interview?
Yes, so in Access HRA, the electronic version will appear. It's that 1173 form that has like the head of case name, case number, the date, and it says that their interview was kept. So that's
That's the
both
same.
electronically available, and then it's also printed and mailed.
Okay. Thank you. And after completing an interview, is an applicant provided with the contact information for a specific staff person who they can follow up with on the status of their application?
So clients call us for the interview. So it's an on-demand number where clients will call at their convenience to have the interview. So we're not doing outbound calls. It's kind of called into a central number where we have a team of workers who will complete those interviews.
So they can follow up on the status of their application by calling that number?
Yes, there's a number listed on that confirmation, the 1173.
Okay, and what, if anything, do you estimate this bill will cost to implement?
We don't estimate it will cost anything, and we can leverage existing resources to build it out further.
Do you have an understanding of the wait times when clients call into that number?
Sure. So for cash assistance, it's about less than an hour and a half for the dedicated number. For SNAP, it's approximately 20 minutes. And there's a callback function, so for folks who do not wish to wait, they can elect to have a callback.
And what would help reduce the wait time for both of those lines?
I think, we're continuing always to refine technology and solutions and efficiencies, and we welcome discussion with the council to partner on that.
Okay, thank you. I want to just pause a moment and allow Councilmember Ressler to make a statement on his legislation, and we'll get back into the questioning.
Thank you so much, Chair Hudson. It is great that you are leading this committee and looking out for the most vulnerable New Yorkers. I'm just reading your testimony on the legislation. Preconsidered T2026-00008 would require the Department of Homeless Services to implement a single data system accessible via mobile devices to track all engagement with street homeless individuals. It would also require DHS to report quarterly on the number of clients that accepted services, including housing placement. An audit in 2023 by then Comptroller Lander found that DHS did not have a comprehensive data system for tracking all engagement with street homeless individuals, and that technology limitations had resulted in many outreach providers developing their own secondary tracking systems. There are over 4,000 at least street homeless individuals in the city of New York, many who are struggling with serious mental illness, and we devote a substantial amount of time and resources and have massive outreach contracts to support them, as we should. But without rigorous tracking of outcomes and coordination across public agencies and our contractors, outreach workers, and service providers, people with serious mental illness continue to fall through the cracks and do not get the care that they need, the care they deserve, and frankly, our efforts are ineffective. The goal of this legislation is to fill those gaps by instituting a more comprehensive system to track engagement with street homeless populations and ensure effective accountability. I will say as a council member, we get incoming all the time, every single, multiple times a week about street homeless New Yorkers who are struggling on the streets and the subways. We have the largest concentration of street homeless individuals in District 33 in all of Brooklyn. And unfortunately, we reach out to providers, we reach out to city agencies, and it feels like we fail to get the results that we deserve. And the lack of coordination across the outreach provider that's in the subways versus the outreach provider that's responsible when the person's outside of the subway station doesn't make any sense. And so we do need an integrated system. We need to make sure that not just DHS, but across DHS and other critical city agencies that are interacting with this relatively small number of people who are chronically homeless and struggling profoundly, who cycle through our jails, our hospitals, our shelters. all the time that we are better tracking real outcomes that connect these individuals to the safe haven shelters and to the supportive housing that overwhelmingly they qualify for and deserve. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to find a path forward on this legislation, and am grateful for the hearing topic today as we dig in to bring greater accountability to our street homeless situation across the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ressler. Okay, so back to the questioning. Why does DHS currently require 2 years of housing history for families with children seeking to enter shelter? And I know this was addressed a bit in your testimony, but if you can provide perhaps just a little bit more detail about why specifically DHS requires 2 years of housing history.
Sure, and thank you for that question, Councilmember. So PATH, which is our Family Intake Center, it's actually an acronym, and the acronym is Prevention Assistance and Temporary Housing. And so at PATH, we employ a prevention first model. We believe that families are best supported in communities where they currently reside, where they have existing networks and existing connections. And so one of the first things we do is assess whether there are viable alternatives to shelter before we pursue shelter, which is obviously a last resort for families experiencing who are experiencing homelessness. And so at PATH, we have very thoughtfully and intentionally designed a resource room which has skilled workers, including social workers, who assist families with navigating complex family dynamics, situations that they would not be empowered to do on their own. And through that assistance, we're usually able to resolve issues such as discord, or perhaps connect them to supports that would allow them to remain safely housed. And so as part of that look back, we want to, one, make sure that we're exploring options to keep the families in settings where they can thrive, where they already have close connections. And two, we want to assess whether there are other referrals that the family may need to support them in their permanency. And so having that 2-year housing history helps us to assess what the instability has been and how to better support the family.
Thank you. And what types of documentation are required as part of the 2-year housing history verification?
So we don't actually require documentation of housing history. Most families present with a photo ID, and that photo ID would be sufficient if it covered the past 2 years. If it was renewed or issued within the 2 years prior to them applying for shelter, that would be sufficient. If an ID is not available or does not cover the 2-year span, then we would ask for any type of bill that may have been mailed to that residence, just to help us to establish that address is known to them. If a family is not able to provide any documentation, we are able to conduct extended searches so we can see if there's anything that links the family to that address.
Okay, thank you. And what's the process for providing shelter to those who are in the process of demonstrating their 2-year housing history?
Sure, thank you for that question. So when families present at PATH, they are immediately given a conditional placement. And that conditional placement is to ensure that families have an opportunity, one, to have a safe space to sleep that night while they work on providing the documentation that we would need to determine their eligibility. That documentation spans beyond housing history. We have to make sure that the children that they are applying with, they actually have verification that those are their children. So it's things like that. We recognize that a lot of times clients or families are arriving to us in crisis. They don't have all their documents on them. And so we provide them with a conditional stay of up to 15 days to provide us the documents that we need to establish their family unit and to verify their eligibility. And to determine their eligibility.
How often are families deemed ineligible for shelter due to being unable to provide 2 years of housing history? So beyond the 15 days.
I'm sorry, what was the
How often are families deemed ineligible for shelter due to being unable to provide 2 years of housing history? So you mentioned you give them a 15-day window to provide documentation. So outside of that 15-day window, how many families are, or how often are families deemed ineligible for shelter simply because they're unable to provide 2 years of housing history?
So I don't have the exact number, and we can get that number to you. But what I will say is that if a family is deemed ineligible, they can immediately reapply. And as part of our commitment to improving the way our families receive shelter, if it's their reapplication, they're not required to go back to PATH. They can actually reapply over the phone for their second application. And so families who are found ineligible can reapply over the phone.
And they can do so immediately?
Yes, immediately.
So
Yes.
if on day 15 they're deemed ineligible, day 16 they can call up and
Yes.
reapply.
Yes, or on day 15, if they receive notice early in the day, they can immediately call and request a reapplication, and their placement will not be disrupted.
And do you know how many families are reapply for eligibility?
So that number,
Like how many people apply one time versus more than once, I guess would be my question.
yeah, we do have that number available. I can provide it to you
Okay.
later time.
Yeah, that would be the rate of reapplication. And then why is there a quote investigation into families who are seeking shelter before they're deemed eligible for shelter? Is there a reason to believe that families are fraudulently trying to access the city's shelter system?
Thank you for that question. We definitely do not operate off the premise that our families are being fraudulent about anything that they're reporting to us. We recognize that our families actually arrive to us in crisis, and we want to do our best to support them. But part of that is making sure that there are no viable alternatives to shelter, because shelter is an option of last resort. And so if someone does have a safe and viable housing option in the community, we would encourage the family to return there.
Okay. Does DHS staff currently upload all documents relating to a family's housing history into its tracking system?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, we do. We have an electronic case management system where we upload all documents.
And what's the name of that system?
CARES.
CARES?
Yes.
I assume it's an
Which is-
acronym.
Yes, it's
You
the
don't-
centralized assistance and rehousing enterprise system.
Okay,
Like
that's
client-
good.
Sorry, it's a lot of.
That's good, though. You had it right there. How does DHS staff communicate to families if any additional information or documentation is required?
Sure. Thank you for that question. So we have a number of ways. The first is when the families apply, and I'm sorry, I keep saying clients and families interchangeably because we have a single adult intake as well. So when families apply, they are provided with an appointment notice, 2 appointment notice slips that will detail the information that was collected from today and what additional information would be required. And so we give them 2 appointment slips to be able to provide that information during their conditional stay. Because again, we recognize that families who are arriving to us in crisis may not have everything that they need for us to be able to establish family unit and to make a determination on their case. We also have recently launched MyFile, which is a electronic client portal. It's mobile based, which allows us to provide clients with notices electronically, as well as allow clients to upload documents that we would need to access.
Thank you for that. And does DHS staff have access to families' HRA applications and documentations? How does staff ensure that families applying for shelter are also applying for other public benefit programs they may be eligible for?
Thank you for that question. So we don't have direct access to their application, their HRA application, but we can see through an interface, whether a client has an active active HRA case. We also, because we understand the importance of rehousing, we encourage our clients to apply for public assistance if they're not currently receiving benefits. That is something that is routinely done during case management.
And would you say, or I guess, what percentage of families that come through the system are then eligible for other benefits? Do you have that number?
I don't have it currently, but we do have it. We can get back to you.
Okay. And not, I would love the number about everybody, not just families, to be clear.
System-wide.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And where can clients applying for shelter currently seek information on the required documentation and proof of housing history required when applying for shelter?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Where can clients applying for shelter currently seek information on the required documentation and proof of housing history required when applying for shelter? So if all you know to do is look on the website, is it accessible
Yes.
there? Okay.
Yes, it's on the website, and we also have a general information number where families can call for questions related to the application process or resources that they can access to help them to remain housed in the community.
And you're giving them also examples of the documents?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to some of my colleagues before I finish up my questions. So, Councilmember Abreu.
Thank you, Chair. 1 second, pulling up my questions. Your testimony states that if a client does not consent to contact with DHS, that they cannot be connected to shelter or offer supplies listed in the bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
Theoretically, would DHS be able to engage with hospitals and provide a set number of supplies before these weather events so that it would preclude the need for the client to approve or disapprove of DHS contact?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to allow my colleague, Nara, to answer.
I just want to go back to the prior question as well. A client or a patient does not need to consent in order to present independently to shelter. The hospital review and discharge planning process involves looking for indicators of clinical risk that the person may not be able to safely reside in shelter from a medical perspective, and attempting to coordinate discharge to a higher level of care if the person needs that. For people who have no other place to go, they can always come to shelter and they will be evaluated at intake for placement, regardless of what we say. So can you just restate the second question?
Yeah, so would DHS theoretically be able to engage with hospitals and provide a set number of supplies to these hospitals before these weather events so that it would preclude the need for the client to approve or disapprove of DHS contact?
So DHS coordinates very frequently with hospitals on hospital discharges. We review over 5,000 discharges to shelter each year for new and returning clients, including people experiencing street homelessness. And we're in a position where we actually sometimes identify clients who are hospitalized and street homeless who have not had known interaction with street outreach teams. So it's an excellent opportunity to put services in place. It is what we do now, and what we are always working on enhancing is communicating discharge best practices with hospitals, including that the hospital should always discharge with appropriate clothing for the weather.
I don't want to, sorry for interrupting you, my timing is going to be up soon. So
Sorry.
my thing, I'm just, there in your testimony, you mentioned that there's a limitation, which is the consent aspect regarding 1353. So theoretically, could DHS provide hospitals with supplies well before weather events take place, such that a client's approval or disapproval of DHS consent is unnecessary at that point?
So DHS potentially could provide supplies. I think the challenge.
So that's what I guess that's step one. So you theoretically could do that. And then step two, I know there's a question on capacity, which is on my next question. Do you have an estimate of the number of street homeless individuals that can access care in the city's hospital system during these extreme weather events?
So we don't have that number. You would have to get it from H&H. Again, we work with H&H very closely
Got it.
and encourage them to allow all street homeless individuals to reside in their waiting areas until the weather emergency is up. In addition to that, my unit, the Joint Command Center, Street Homeless Solutions, speaks to a minimum of 4 to 6 H&H hospitals every single night, even when it's not a weather emergency, to let them know who's our manager on duty. We get the name of the AOD on duty, and we're in constant contact with them throughout the entire night from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m., letting them know that we can transport folks from the ER to shelter. So we work with H&H very closely
Thank you for that.
365 days a year.
Okay, and we'll try to get that information from H&H. Regarding the storage capacity, would you agree that providing hospitals proactively, let's say with a kit of 20 supplies, would be something that the city has capacity to coordinate individually? Because you mentioned it's a concern for the agency, the storage capacity, but 20 or 50, kits doesn't seem to be a limiting factor given how massive these hospitals are.
We don't think it's a limiting factor. Again, our concern was just we wanted to make sure that everyone who needs to get this could get it. And because there are confidentiality issues, many folks who are in the waiting area, who are in emergency room, tell H&H they do not want to be connected to shelter, so we don't have that information. But if it's a matter of if the resources are available and can we make sure H&H gets them, that is not a problem. But H&H would have to agree to receive them, store them, and track the information.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much for your testimony, and just want to let you know that I'm also just as eager as you are to work on 1352 as well and get to a good place on that. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. And I'd also like to recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Stevens. Councilmember Brewer has some questions.
Thank you very much. In terms of street outreach in Manhattan, I just don't know how you coordinate it. Maybe it's fine, but you've got the district attorney with individuals. You've got the street outreach, Goddard or others, and then you have, I guess, the mayor's office has people going out for the encampments. My encampments are going now. They've been there so long, they now go to block association meetings, just so you know. But so those three at least. So how does that coordinate? Is that working, that kind of coordination?
I want to make sure I understand. First, thank you for the question. Is the question how we coordinate with the district attorney's office and other agencies?
Doing outreach, right.
So the way that DHS coordinates is that we primarily focus on housing. And so anyone who reaches out to us to access a safe haven stabilization bed or shelter bed will be granted access. In terms of the work that happens with the DA's office, I believe they have navigators. We don't directly work with them, but they do have access to refer individuals to our sites. And when called upon, we do joint operations with the navigators and other folks who are not contracted to DHS.
Does it seem to be getting more individuals with extra efforts to go to shelter?
We don't have the numbers specifically for the navigators, but I can tell you the DHS efforts in partnership with, say, DOHMH, H&H, our contractor outreach providers, and the general public does bring more folks into shelter.
Okay.
Partnerships are important.
Okay, second question. We're lucky to have West Side Campaign Against Hunger. They're in our office once a week, and they help with benefits because they have the ability to do that. So my question is, how many nonprofits are helping? Because that means the person doesn't have to go downtown, they don't have to go online because the seniors don't often know how to go online, et cetera. So is that program pretty extensive? How many nonprofits are part of it, et cetera? They have the capacity to do the same benefits operation that an HRA staff member would.
That's for HRA benefits, correct? Okay.
Yeah, SNAP, cash assistance, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you, Councilmember. We'll get back to you on that number. It's through New York City Benefits, I think, right? Yeah,
Right,
we can get
right.
back to you.
So, but do a lot of nonprofits participate just generally? Does it help you? Does it not help? Because it certainly helps us. I mean, with my constituents.
Right. I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can get back to you on that. And we are very much grateful for the partnership we have with nonprofits and CBOs who, support populations in harder to reach areas with applying for HRA benefits.
Okay, it would just seem to me more nonprofits to participate because then more people would feel comfortable and would, a trusted partner, so to speak. So are you doing outreach to get more nonprofits to do that work?
That's a different area of the agency that we can find out and get back
Okay.
to you on.
All right. The other question is when parents come to PATH, how do you work in terms of the school? Because obviously you want school-age children to be, how does that get as a priority? In other words, you want to be in a shelter near a school, near the school, if they're school-aged.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember. And so at PATH, we prioritize placing the youngest school-age child in a shelter that's in close proximity to their school. And so generally for us, that's around children age 5. We will place them in a shelter if we can, capacity permitting, that is in the close proximity.
Do you have any percentage as to how many times you're able to do that or not do that? Is that something that you track?
I can go back and see if that's a number we can provide.
Okay. The Housing First program, does that still exist? That whole notion that, you know, housing comes first? It existed for a while. In other words, we have this pilot that existed for housing first. In other words, it's controversial. People say, if you give people housing before they go through the process, then they're all going to come and want housing and blah, blah, blah. That was Bloomberg's position. So I'm just wondering, it's a pilot. Did it work? Does it still exist? Do you know?
Is this the street to home pilot
Yes.
that we had?
Yeah.
So it does not still exist. I'm hearing that there are conversations happening now. I can tell you that we were big supporters of the pilot. There were challenges once individuals were placed in getting folks to continue to move through the trajectory to get the necessary documentation because it was a supportive housing unit. So there's things that people have to do. But we were successful at getting individuals inside. We filled the units within a couple of months. But I can tell you there definitely was challenges. There was a study done on it. And I think the biggest challenges were that individuals once inside really struggled with meeting the documentation compliance and actually going through the process. And folks just, chose to do other things. So, but I do hear that there's more conversations about looking at other ways to consider that type of a policy and or program again.
Could you get any study to the committee? Could it be shared with the committee, the study?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just one last quick question. Technology, again, this is a larger topic. Do you need our technology, is it working? Is there other kinds that you could be using? We always talk about AI as if it's some kind of magic, but it's not. But is there any kind of, always, to me, it's still, you're filling out a lot of forms, blah, 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 there's a lot of duplication. Is there some way that you're looking at the technology issue differently? For all of this across the board?
So yes, thank you for that question, Councilmember. Yes, at DHS, we are constantly looking at ways to improve the way we deliver our services in the way that our most vulnerable New Yorkers access those services. And so to answer your question, yes, we are looking at ways that technology can leverage the work that we currently do and make it more efficient. And we will remain committed to that. There are a number of different pilots that we're exploring to improve access to information.
And to your question, Council Member, we just received $1.5 million towards the encampment work for technology improvements, which will allow us to really do the encampment work in our system of record, to have really robust information about specific encampments as well as individuals on site. So we're constantly looking at technology and how we make it meet our needs at the current moment.
Okay, thank you. And I would love to hear even more about that in the future. Thank you. I've got 2 encampments, if anybody's interested. They're there forever, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I will move on to Councilmember Ressler.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Chair Hudson. And thank you to the DHS team for your hard work on what is, an challenging situation. So just to make sure that I understand properly, StreetSmart is the data system we have for tracking engagements with street homeless individuals. CARES is the system we have for tracking folks who are in DHS shelter. Is that right?
Correct.
And none of the outreach providers who were doing outreach to street homeless New Yorkers have access to any of the information in CARES?
No, they have access to all of it. So they have access to StreetSmart and they have access to CARES. So DHS, our 5 contracted outreach providers who do above ground work and subway work, as well as DOHMH and the state SOS teams, have access to CARES and StreetSmart.
So when someone do they have mobile access?
No. Correct. They do not have mobile access.
Got it. So there's access for somebody in a headquarters somewhere at a breaking ground office or a BRC office. But for the outreach worker who's on the ground talking to individual in the subway or on the street, they don't know anything about that client's history.
Correct.
And you think it would be helpful for them to better understand that client's history?
Absolutely. We support the idea of looking at expanding our technology to meet the needs. We know that street homelessness is a really complicated issue, and that our folks who are on the street have experienced severe trauma. And so we understand that having important information in real time, regardless of who's engaging with them, is really important to move them along the trajectory to coincide.
I'll say the one thing that unifies just about every street homeless New Yorker is that they've been through the DHS system and they're deciding to be on the street. And so we've got a lot of work to do upstream, as our former mayor might have said, thankfully former mayor, that we have to be doing a better job of providing high quality services and delivering better conditions in our shelters and improve safety to prevent street homelessness. And I really think that as we look to the priorities of the Mamdani administration, this has to be near the top of the list as a way to effectively reduce street homelessness long term. But I just want to share an example. There was a gentleman who lived on the streets of Boerum Hill for decades. And, he'd come in, he'd use our office to use the bathroom, our sink for essentially his shower. We were finally able to get him into a safe haven, and want to thank the team at BRC, team at Breaking Ground for their help on that. But we were told there was no record of him in the DHS system for being homeless, despite having lived on the streets of our neighborhood for well over a decade and speaking regularly with service providers. They claimed they didn't have a history with him, which made it more challenging for us to get him into supportive housing. So you can't speak to the specifics, and I don't need to get into this gentleman's personal history any more than I already have. But I just mean to say, I feel like there's a lack of coordination that happens here on a regular basis that makes it really hard. And I'll give another, there are a number of street homeless individuals in our community, chronically street homeless, live in the same locations. I see them every day, and many have serious mental health issues, causing public safety concerns for folks in the neighborhood. When we share information with the outreach providers and say, hey, there's a gentleman outside the Clark Street station. He's there all the time. He threatens people. He's gotten into fights before. We have a lot of concerns. The outreach provider will show up at 2 a.m. and say, we couldn't find the person. And that'll be that. I just find myself so frustrated because the level of engagement, the consistency of engagement, and the efficacy of the engagement just doesn't seem to yield the results that we all want. And so it's just really frustrating as somebody who's trying to lean on our outreach providers. I know 15 staff at every one of them that we all work closely with to try to get help. And the number of times that we actually move people off of the streets and off of the subways into shelter feels impressively rare. So just wondering, how do we more effectively coordinate with our outreach providers to actually reach them, the clients who need help, and actually get them connected to the safe haven shelters or the supportive housing that will make a difference?
So thank you for that, council member. I want to say that one of the things we are clear about is that street homelessness is extremely complicated. We're in a space where we are meeting folks where they're at, engaging them repeatedly, offering the best available options in safe haven, small settings, single rooms, double rooms. We try to put offers in location that's in close proximity. So if you're on 42nd Street, we're trying to give you the single or double room on 55th Street or 46th Street, whatever we have closest. So we're really doing our best to understand that the folks that we're working with have been traumatized and have fallen through many cracks, and some of them are really struggling and don't trust. And so I think the biggest thing we see now is that beds are being offered. We're trying to understand how we can move people along, but we're running into a situation where we're dealing with a lot of severe mental illness, a lot of substance use disorder, And we're working now really closely with the administration to make sure that we're prioritizing mental and physical health, that we're ensuring that these resources are being brought to the street. Because right now with outreach, a person can be engaged once and come inside, or you can be engaged every week for 4 years and not come inside. It depends on how the person feels, what their challenges are, and how much they're willing to connect with us and trust us with their care. And so what we've seen is that while we've expanded the beds, we've built out more safe havens, we try to have as many beds in all of the right locations that we can. And our outreach teams are out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of the weather, right? You have DHS that's out there, lockstep. The reality is that when we're dealing with folks who have been traumatized, the right time is only when a person says it's the right time. And what we find is that if we bring the resources to them, if we bring the health care, if we bring the mental health, if we say to our partners who have those resources, this is a full-on partnership, we're hoping that that will help us, because the people who want to access our services do, but some of our most vulnerable don't, right? Or they come in for one day. We've had folks we place on a Monday 5 blocks from where they're at in a single room, and we come back on a Thursday and they're back outside. That's trauma, right? Because you're in a warm space, you have a bed, there's no requirement, no sobriety requirement or anything, and yet 4 days later, you're back outside. So that signaled to us that this is way bigger than just access to low barrier beds. This has to be a comprehensive, all-out war on giving all of the resources to save people and to make sure that we're dealing with this from a mental and physical health perspective, including making sure those resources are available on the street, not just in shelter.
I really appreciate everything you just said, and I agree with you. It's really hard work, and you got to meet people where they're at, and ultimately, street homeless New Yorkers are making the decision when they want to come inside. If we recognize that just having the safe haven capacity, and I'm proud that we opened, I think, the largest safe haven in Brooklyn in my district as council member. I'm proud we've opened the largest supportive housing development in Brooklyn in my district as the council member, and I would love to do more, so we'll make them happen. But if you're telling me that people are struggling severely with mental illness and substance use challenges, and just having the low barrier beds with privacy is not enough, what else do we need to do to actually make a difference? Because I will tell you, as a council member for 33rd District, I got more incoming from constituents about chronic street homelessness conditions in the last 6 months of the Adams administration than I did during any of these 4 years. So I don't think we're doing better than we were. I think as things are tough and they're entrenched, what will make a difference if it's not just going to be low barrier beds?
Well, one of the things we're doing now is that we are expanding the ability to connect with individuals. So we're going out, especially if a person's at an encampment, we're going to be going out every single day. And we think that rapport building, although they may be annoyed by us, I think us being there every single day gives us a higher probability that we'll catch them when they're ready. So definitely more intense, more frequent engagement. The other thing that's happening is that we're looking at how we work with our agency partners. We've been piloting a program with H&H where they're sending out the show vans, because guess what? You may not want to talk to the outreach worker about getting a safe haven bed today, but you may want to talk about that wound on your knee. You may want to go figure out how you refill your prescriptions. So how do we look at the mental and physical health aspect of this work to get folks to start to trust us, right? Because at the end of the day, it is all about trust. It is all about rapport building, and it has to be comprehensive, because again, these are not light challenges. If this was just about access to a bed, there would be a lot more people inside. This is bigger than just access to a bed. We have to lean in. We have to build rapport. We have to bring the resources to the street, and we have to be consistent and deliberate every single day until folks are ready to accept our help and trust us.
I appreciate all that, and I support it. I would say that we're asking people to come back to a DHS system they've been to before, where they've too often had not good experiences. And so if we're going to address this issue long term, we need to also focus on improving the conditions in our shelters, providing more privacy, providing better services, providing more substance use and mental health treatment, reducing safety issues. If we can do those things on the front end, I think we will reduce street homelessness, and also it will be easier to get people to come inside down the line when that does occur. Thank you very much, Chair, for the leniency on the time.
Thank you, council member. Okay, just some more questions from me. Regarding Councilmember Abreu's bills, do DHS contracted outreach workers follow up with individuals who they support in getting care at hospitals? And if yes, what does that follow-up entail?
Yes, so anyone who is admitted to the hospital, if we're notified by some other collateral source, then we will contact the hospital. If the hospital notifies us, then we immediately, within a certain time frame, report to the hospital and try to participate in discharge planning. We ask our hospitals to not discharge any street homeless person known to our contractor outreach providers without coordinating with our team from the Office of the Medical Director and the Joint Command Center to make sure the person actually goes to the safe haven and is stabilized.
And do you find that H&H complies with that request?
Yes, but the challenge is, and Nera could speak more to this, she's the lead in the unit that does this, but the biggest challenge is that if I'm a street homeless person, I've been traumatized, and I do not feel like speaking to DHS that day, I can say to the hospital, don't contact DHS. And then the hospital's hands are tied, and we won't know that the person is actually being discharged to the hospital unless there's some other collateral information. And even at that point, when we contact the hospital, they will not give us any information because they are held by confidentiality.
Okay, that's very helpful. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I would just like to share that what we've been trying to do with the institutional referral program to address these issues is to use the time of hospitalization where the person is in an institution, is in contact with the healthcare system, to try to put supports in place while they may have benefited from being on treatment while hospitalized. They may be in a more stable mental and physical state and be able to make a better choice at that moment, to encourage them to engage in programs like the street outreach programs if they aren't already connected, or the OMH Safe Options Support Program that provides mental health services on the street, as well as helps with transitions indoors to shelter and safe haven, and also supports applications for supportive housing. We try to put those services in place before they leave the hospital, and then these programs also can provide some of the resources that have been discussed and also accompany the client to the safe haven or shelter placement to help them settle in, meet the social service staff on site on the day of discharge, and immediately initiate their continuity of care plans so that they don't miss treatments, they don't miss doses of medication, and immediately decompensate. So we believe this is the best way to help people make the transition indoors from the hospital to shelter.
What about patients who are referred to hospitals rather than admitted? Does DHS follow up with them?
Yes, so DHS is a very varied system. There's over 550 shelters. So the way it works currently is that new clients to shelter, people that do not have an active shelter case, are referred to DHS through the institutional referral program, which is the central program. If a client is hospitalized either from street or from the shelter, the party that was involved in the hospitalization, whether that be the shelter leadership or the street outreach teams, should be communicating with the hospital on the day of they're sent to the hospital via EMS or by calling the hospital to provide collateral information, the condition of the client, advocate for the appropriate treatment, and then ideally immediately begin discharge planning at that time to support transitions back to that shelter or indoors in the case of street homelessness. And then we would try to put all of the same supports in place. So while they're in the hospital, get Shelter Partnered Act in place, SOS in place, something in place to help provide that extra supportive service to help them be more successful in the shelter on the next try.
Okay, thank you. What supplies are currently made available to patients prior to discharge who may be experiencing homelessness?
Okay, so the other thing is we've talked a lot about H&H here, but through our institutional referral program, we work with all hospitals in New York City, and only approximately 30% of the referrals we receive come from H&H. So it's really critical to note that this really applies to all hospitals, and any hospital may receive a person experiencing street homelessness for care. So the hospitals do varying different things with regard to providing clothing and supplies when leaving the hospital. I'm not the best person to speak, but each party does. But I know that H&H does make a great effort to provide especially warm clothing or appropriate clothing for the weather. We always routinely recommend that hospitals discharge after a full meal in appropriate clothing for the weather of all types, including those that were suggested in the bills. We provide instructions to have the clients transported to the shelter, so whether that be shelter intake or safe haven, so that they are not exposed to weather conditions before coming to shelter.
Okay, I'm going to come back to some of that in a second, but what is DHS's FY26 budget for supplies distributed to unsheltered homeless persons? And how much has been spent thus far in FY25?
I don't have the number offhand, but we can
You
get
can
it.
follow up? Okay. So just going back to the hospital piece, you said 30% of referrals apply to H&H, which would imply 70% go to private hospitals or other non-H&H hospitals. But the notification, information, training, everything that you all do goes to all hospitals, to be clear.
Yes, we offer guidance and training to all hospitals and other referring providers. So
Do you offer it? I mean, okay, you say you offer it. Do you give it? Because it's one thing to offer, and if they don't accept the offer, then it doesn't happen. So
I understand, yes. So we routinely provide trainings in partnership with the Greater New York Hospital Association for all providers, and we actually currently accept requests for training, but have a plan to have a monthly training with hospitals this year beginning, and we also have created a new toolkit, and then we constantly are pushing that out to providers through emails and our usual communications. I will say that we have a pretty small institutional referral program with just a few people and are largely focused on keeping up with the case reviews and providing individual guidance to hospitals on each case. The clients are incredibly complex, and although some of the broad overarching guidance is helpful to every situation, we find that we really need to kind of negotiate and sort of in-depth back and forth conversations to address each issue that arises. So we do a lot of our work on a case basis, but we do provide regular trainings.
it sounds like you're saying it's challenging to engage with the hospitals. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I took from that.
Well, hospitals are a highly pressured environment as well, and so they are often very focused on discharging as quickly as possible, and they will often send us the referral just 1 to 2 days or even on the day of discharge, and we still make every attempt to work on a safe discharge plan for those individuals under some pressure to discharge.
Okay, so more time is needed in order to prepare for adequate discharge, I guess would be
Definitely, and
fair.
in particular for street homeless individuals, in particular for people who may have been involuntarily removed from the street or subway because there's public safety concerns.
Okay, and you referenced this, and the former commissioner referenced this in our hearing. I guess was that maybe a month and a half ago or so. The emails and notification that's sent out, so specifically with regard to Code Blue or Enhanced Code Blue emails, is there any sort of in-person direct engagement or outreach to some of these hospitals, somebody who's going in and giving reminders or trainings? I know, staff resources are limited, but I'm just wondering specifically, in advance of like or even Enhanced Code Blue or Code Blue, is somebody going into the hospitals and saying, hey, just want to remind everybody who's working here that these are sort of the expectations?
Sure, I totally understand, and I just want to share that I would really like to be able to do this. I'd really like to have this capacity in the Central Institutional Referral Program. I mentioned we have a small team of case-focused individuals, so most of our communications are online via live trainings and webinars.
And sorry, what's the size of that team and what's the name again? Central Institutional Referrals?
It's our institutional referral program, which is in the central office at DHS. And it's really only a team of approximately 3 full-time staff. And then we've sort of been able to work with additional cases by leveraging temp resources. Despite that, we review 5,000 referrals a year. So really doing the best we can. But have a long history of developing training programs and would love to be able to provide more proactive trainings to hospitals, both online and in person, and also more enhanced guidance. But in any case, we communicate online, and then there's a program through the Office of Mental Health called the Hospital Care and Transitions Program that provides some guidance for hospitals on discharge planning. So we partner with them as well to try to get the guidance out there and to troubleshoot various questions that hospitals have.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to go to Councilmember Nurse and then come back with my last bit of questions.
Slightly off topic, but on topic. I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Brewer's Housing First questions. I have Volunteers of America in my district where the pilot was and the 81 participants went through. And we actually understood the challenges of folks get their keys, they're in there, but then there's all these forms and things that need to be filled out, and it's really challenging for them. We later introduced a bill, which we haven't reintroduced, but to look at the 2010E form. And I'm just wondering if you all have spent any time kind of auditing all the things that people are required to prove, particularly with the identified group of folks that are chronically homeless, who have compounding issues, may or may not, right? But that for that particular group of folks who might not be able to chase down documents, has there been a review since that program was ended or the pilot didn't continue, to look at where we can eliminate some of this need for documents that would make this more successful again?
So any review that would have been done through HRA, through the supportive housing unit, so we could follow up with them and find out, if they did an assessment and an autopsy to figure out what the challenges were. I believe they did. We got a lot of feedback from them about, what the challenges were, as well as, things that they thought could be improved. We could definitely speak to them. I can also tell you, as part of the resources that we just received at DHS, the current administration afforded us, I believe, 4 housing specialists who will also be able to work in tandem with folks on the streets to connect them to permanent housing and supportive housing. So we will plan to use those resources to support if, in fact, a program like this is rolled out again.
Yeah. No, I guess I don't really have any further questions, but I just want to advocate for, I think that program was short-lived. I think it was a mistake not to continue it. I understand that things needed to be worked out operationally, but we should be looking for ways to reduce the amount of things that people got to come up with. I mean, if you're sleeping in a tent and you've been there for a year, they're not going to chase down this stuff. And if we had the right, platform that everybody can see, we've been engaging this person for 4 years, they don't need to prove it to us because we know, that would be really, really great. And I hope this administration can really, really prioritize making housing first a priority again, because it works. And at least there are organizations that are ready to do it. And we've even tried to do it when we've had supportive housing units on public land that are going through a ULURP. We can't even advocate for those to be street to home because of all of these layers of things that need to be cut out in between. So just wanted to comment that I hope this gets picked up again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Morano?
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony and for all the great work that you're doing. A couple of questions on the legislation, and if we have time, one or two other areas regarding other work DHS is doing. Your testimony says that reducing the housing history requirement from 2 years to 1 could cost roughly $169 million a year, plus another $7 million from extending temporary housing placements. At a time when New Yorkers are already paying quite a bit in taxes, I'm wondering if you can explain why expanding eligibility for shelters should be the priority instead of investing in policies that actually help people leave the system.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part?
Well, why should we be investing in policy? Why shouldn't we be investing in policies that help people leave the system, given the increased cost of moving the housing history requirement from 2 years to 1?
So, thank you for the question. I want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. As I read the testimony, the proposal was to reduce the housing history from 2 years to 1 year. And we provided some cost estimates around what we thought the implications would be. And it sounds like the last part of your question is, why are we looking to reduce it to 1 year?
Well, basically, given the enormous cost of the shelter system already, I'm wondering why expanding eligibility for shelter is the right priority, rather than investing in policies to help people exit homelessness permanently.
So we're not expanding eligibility for homeless families, but there has been a massive investment in assisting families and exiting shelter. City FEPS, which is the housing subsidy that our families use to subsidize rent, has been there has been a substantial investment in that over the past years to assist families with moving out of shelter.
On Intro 139, your testimony indicates that the system already generates interview receipts and notifications. If that's the case, are we solving a real problem here, or simply adding another bureaucratic requirement that might cost time and money but not necessarily improve outcome for either taxpayers or applicants?
Yeah, hi. So, yeah, that form notification, the 1173, is both electronic and written, and it kind of already exists, and so I think the council may have been looking for a few additional data fields that we're happy to kind of discuss, and how operationally it might kind of not really fit into our calling in on demand, and kind of, I think it more looks at outbound calling, which really isn't the operational processes that we have in place, but most of the elements are already exist in that form. So yeah.
Already, without new existing legislation. So on Intro 0008, that legislation proposes new tracking systems and data reporting for outreach efforts. But the real question, I think, for a lot of folks is outcomes. What percentage of people that your outreach teams engage with actually accept shelter or services? And I'm wondering how you think this bill might materially improve that number.
So I don't have the numbers offhand of how many people, but we do have that information. I do think that this bill could help us because the goal is to have a mobile app. We've already had conversations about it. I think the challenge has been funding. We've received a couple of different estimates, and the lowest has been $3 million. The highest was $10 million, and then there was one in between, and that did not include the annual cost to keep it, functional. And we know that it's important to have that annual support because ultimately these systems have to be cleaned, recalibrated, and there's a lot of technical stuff that happens. But we absolutely think a mobile app could be an opportunity for us to do this work with a lot more information at our fingertips while we engage folks who are challenging.
You mentioned the institutional referral process between hospitals and DHS. How often do hospitals discharge patients directly into the shelter system? And are we confident that we're not unintentionally turning shelters into a default discharge plan?
We are always looking at that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we receive about 5,000 referrals that are mostly new to shelter and some complex returning clients. And the policy is that if a client is active and is sent to the hospital, they should be planning discharge with the shelter itself that they're assigned to. So there's a far higher number of people who are hospitalized and returned to shelter than 5,000 per year. And hospitals are supposed to look at the patient's available options and the level of care they need and discharge to that level of care. But it is extremely challenging for hospitals to discharge to nursing home or assisted living facility, particularly for people with very serious behavioral health histories of incarceration, and other barriers. So shelter, unfortunately, does become sometimes the easiest option for the most challenging clients. And so we look at our data on successful discharge to shelter each year, and we see that about 30% of the total hospital discharges actually present to shelter or safe haven. We don't have information as to where the others end up going. Some certainly end up going to the street despite all of our efforts, but I'm sharing this to illustrate that more could be done to enhance the collaboration between hospitals to support successful discharges for people experiencing homelessness. And to answer kind of a question that came up earlier, there are gaps in our system. So shelter is not a medical facility and does not have robust on-site mental health, medical treatment, or home health care services that you would, like many people might need a home health aide to help them with their activities of daily living or medication management. And that being said, there are very few assisted living or places that provide this sort of home health care available to our clients. So they end up with us, though it's not the best option because there's no other option for them.
And Chair, if you'll permit me, one final question. This is somewhat local, but it's in line with what you testified about. Your testimony suggests these proposals could increase the need for shelter capacity across the city. My constituents on Staten Island are currently dealing with a proposed 160-bed men's shelter on Arthur Kill Road. Before expanding policies that increase demand for shelters, has DHS evaluated whether communities like Staten Island or other communities are being asked to observe a disproportionate share of new facilities?
So the answer to that question would come from our capacity division. We could absolutely ask them to get back to you with the answer to that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Council Member. A couple of quick follow-up questions on two previously asked questions. One is following up on Councilmember Nurse's line of questioning about the shelter. VOA says that they're still operating the program, but DHS isn't sending folks to their units, and they have a vacancy of 16 units. Can you just explain or clarify why DHS may not be utilizing those units?
So I was not aware that we're not using those units. We had filled the building to capacity. If there are units that are vacant and no one is accessing them, the challenge may be that when we refer folks, they do not want to go to the location. The reality is that, folks have a right to autonomy. And so if they visit the location and it's someplace that they're not interested in, or if we are engaging them either in the subway or at our welcome center, and we tell them about the location and they choose not to accept, there isn't much we could do but continue to work with them. I have an assistant commissioner directly under my purview who refers to the units for VOA. And so If we have a vacancy of 16, believe me, it's not because DHS is not trying. It just means that individuals are not accepting those rooms.
Okay, but maybe you could look further into that.
Absolutely, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, and then we were talking earlier about the phone number for clients to call and reapplying. How many times can clients reapply given that specific phone number? My understanding from some advocates is that they can call one time to reapply, but perhaps if they're calling a second or a third time, meaning they've already applied the initial time, and this is the second or third time that they're using the phone call, the phone number to reapply, and then they're being denied, or they're being sent to a different number or something.
Sure, happy to answer that. So just to clarify, the second reapplication, we do allow that to be done over the phone. If there is a third application or any subsequent applications, it would have to happen in person, but there is no limit on how many times a family can reapply. Our goal is that during the conditional process, the families gain greater clarity on what is being asked of them, and that they are able to provide that documentation so that we can make a determination within that conditional period. On average, we're able to make a determination on a family case which is in 16 days, which is very close to the conditional period. And so most families are able to produce what is needed. And like I said earlier, it's generally limited to the verification of the child, the birth certificates, things like that, photo ID. The housing history, it can be just writing out the address, because even if they don't have documentation that they live there, we still can conduct an investigation by doing a field investigation, speaking with the primary tenant. And so there isn't a lot of burden on a client for physical documents. But if they are not able to produce documentation, or they don't cooperate with the process, the first reapplication is over the phone. Any subsequent applications are in person. But again, our hope is that between the first and second application, that they understand what is being asked of them, and that we understand what we can do to assist them so that we can make a determination on their case.
I just want to push back a little bit, because if the idea around the first reapplication, but the second application, the first phone call after they visit in person, and the idea is to lessen the burden on the client and allow them the opportunity to reapply via telephone, I would make the argument that if they still need to apply subsequent times, a third or fourth time, then they're probably already overburdened and probably could use, it would be easier for them to reapply the third or fourth time via telephone. So to make them come in person the first time, reapply by phone the second time, and then have to come back in person the third or subsequent time, to me seems like a lot. And so if there's a way to allow subsequent reapplications after the second time via telephone, I think that would probably be helpful.
Thank you, and that's something that we can consider.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Aviles.
Thank you so much, Chair. I was surprised you were getting questions, political questions around why we should do either or, but clearly we need to do everything to make sure that New Yorkers get housed and get the services that they need, because they deserve that, because they are human and we dignify all people. I'd like to know, slightly off topic.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Sherry. You're the best. For recently supporting a constituent in her application for HEAP, the telephone number on the application, she sat in my office for 3 hours on the phone, and then we did all the rest of the stuff. This is her third attempt at trying to get on the phone to get a fair hearing, and sat on the phone for several hours. I think akin to folks having to resubmit the paperwork over and over again for a whole range of services in the agency, it is truly a burden. And I think if we were to potentially even have all the council member staff who spend time resubmitting paperwork for a wide range of services to the agency, we are spending oodles of money. So I'd love to hear, have you heard this before? Can you look into this? Why is someone sitting on a phone for 3 or 4 hours with not getting any service? And then ultimately, it is true that we need to remove all these additional barriers, particularly for a vulnerable community who's not carrying around paperwork and is not going to fax things 5 or 6 times. So I just would like to hear from you if you could talk to us about what's going on here.
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. We'd be happy to look at that individual case to really dig in and find out, understand more what the delays might have been and what was causing that.
So, thank you. There's no reason for anyone to be on a phone for 3 hours on hold, an unending hell vortex of, I don't even know if there was music on there because I didn't have the patience to wait. Thank you. In terms of the system that would help efficiency, obviously there was a proposition here that why would we are not expanding homelessness in New York City. It is happening. And so we are recognizing that we have to work more efficiently. We have to make sure we get these vouchers online so that we can adequately house people. In terms of the expansion of the tech in order to help the agency do better, $3 million cost seems relatively nominal in the grand scheme of things. Is the agency of the opinion that this is a good investment to, you got to move slow to move fast?
We are of the opinion that it's a good investment. We absolutely believe that, again, a mobile app would allow individuals to have real-time information about very complex needs of our vulnerable population. I can tell you that we have historically expanded and worked on Street Smart. Street Smart was stood up many years ago and then left without the necessary supports. And we have year over year, even including using funding from other state resources or whatever we could get, expanded on what's available in Street Smart, the quality of our data, the information that's being put into the system, right? We are consistently trying to make sure that our data and reporting is clear, that is collecting the right data, that is driving how we do outreach, how we connect folks to services, and where we deploy our resources. So we absolutely believe that any investments in technology, especially if it allows us to support really vulnerable folks in real time with accurate information, is important.
And thank you for the work that you all do.
One point of correction, Councilmember Hudson, my assistant commissioner confirmed to me that we are actively referring to VOA. So I will get a date for the last referral, but what was reported to you doesn't add up with what my team is saying. They're saying that we're actively reporting consistently. We have not stopped in any vacancies. We're referring folks to those beds. So we'll find out exactly what the
Okay, that would be great.
the
If you
issue
could follow
is.
up with me and Councilmember Nurse, that
Will
would be
do.
great. Thank you. Okay, I have 7 more questions. So we're almost there before we get into public testimony. And this is all related to Councilmember Ressler's legislation. So do DHS outreach workers currently track the total number of engagements with unhoused individuals that result in temporary placement into shelter?
Yes.
And then is that after their shift?
Yes.
Versus in real time,
So
right?
they have phones and they have tablets. So that information is uploaded on the phone and the tablet into a spreadsheet and then moved into our system of record.
Okay, thank you. What's the average number of engagements with an unhoused individual by a DHS street outreach worker before they accept placement into shelter?
That is an extremely complicated question. If you were to ask me...
Give me an extremely complicated answer.
And I'm about to give it to you. So if you were to say, here's John Smith, how many times has he spoken to a contractor outreach provider or a DHS worker before he came inside? I could give you that number. If you ask me about everybody we spoke to in the past year, that would be a very difficult number. And the reason is because, again, street homelessness is extremely complicated. We have folks that we meet on the first day in the subway system and they accept a bed. And we have people who've been on the street for 4 years straight, being engaged 3 times a week, and they refuse to accept a bed. In addition to that, say you accept a bed today and you go into shelter, you're going to stay in Street Smart. So even if you're in shelter, we will still count you as street homeless, because guess what? The outreach team is still working with you in shelter, and when you get discharged to permanent housing, you will get support for 6 months after. And so what happens is that your Street Smart record runs the gamut, and so it's really difficult to say that even when we're engaging with you, that you're not necessarily already in transitional housing.
Okay, so hold on. So for 6 months or beyond the 6 months?
For a person in permanent housing, it is 6 months or further if the outreach team determines that you need more supports. Yeah.
So shouldn't we be able to identify those people as unique individuals outside of everybody else who might fall into that category for
Yes.
better tracking purposes?
Absolutely. And again, the challenge would be, there are people, if you look at, for example, certain programs, there are people who accept a bed day 1, day 10, day 8. There are people who accept a bed 3 years, 4 years later, or who have accepted beds intermittently throughout the 4 years, right? They went in for a month, came back out.
Right.
So it's not that the numbers can't be pulled, but if you really want an accurate understanding, it really has to be looked at individualized, because we could say John Smith accepted a bed 25 times, stayed in shelter 250 days, and spent 300 days on the street. We could tell you that about John Smith. But to throw John Smith in with everyone else,
Right.
it's, the variance is so big because of the complications. It's just really difficult to say that the numbers will make sense when a person received them, if we're able to pull them.
It might be helpful, though, to have at least categories then of some of these numbers. So if there are clients like John Smith, let's say there are 50 clients like John Smith, then we have 50 extremely complicated, sort of recurring clients, blah, 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 that fit into that category. Outside of that, though, the average number of engagements with an unhoused individual before they enter permanent housing is X, while they're in transitional housing is Y. It would be helpful if maybe you can disaggregate some of the data
Understood.
in that way.
Understood. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And that can be, it doesn't have to be immediate, obviously, but it would be good, over some short to medium amount of time if we could work together on trying to get there. Okay, thank you. What data points are DHS outreach workers currently recording in Street Smart?
So they record, first and foremost, whatever identifying information a person is willing to provide. And again, that varies from person to person, but it is name, date of birth, the location, any other information that would help us identify the person, including if the person doesn't want to give a name, we have a person in the system called Deborah Eyeliner, or lady on park bench with silver hair, this park, right? We take whatever information we can to try to identify folks, because oftentimes it takes a bit of time for people to give you their name, right?
Right.
And so we're collecting basic information initially, and then as they agree to services, more and more information, name, social security, date of birth, whatever they're willing to provide. And then once they're inside, of course, there's a whole nother level of engagement that happens to try to get the information necessary for permanent housing. So it is basic demographic information and then the necessary information for permanent housing as they move through the trajectory.
Okay, thank you. What's the current protocol for street outreach teams to record engagement with street homeless individuals?
So for, when you say protocol, is it how soon do they have to put the information that they have in the system?
Correct.
So for DHS staff, it is as soon as they send a report, the information is entered, and we have staff who are collecting that information via email and inputting, the person accepted transitional housing and whatever information was provided as part of the initial email requesting the shelter placement. For the contracted outreach providers, I believe they have to put it in by the end of the shift, but before the next shift, but I can confirm that for you.
Okay, great, thank you. And is the Street Smart application developed and maintained internally by DHS, or is it contracted out?
So the DHS has 5 contracted outreach providers. BRC is below ground. They have the entire subway system. And then we have Bronx Works for the Bronx, Breaking Ground for Queens and Brooklyn, and Project Hospitality for Staten Island. And then we also work very closely again with the state SOS teams, as well as the DOH and MH response teams.
Okay. I counted 4. BRC, Bronx Works, Breaking Ground, Project Hospitality. Was there a fifth?
And MOC. Sorry, Manhattan is MOC.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
I should have known MOC.
MOC?
Yes, MOC, Manhattan Outreach Consortium.
Thank you. Did DHS issue an RFP, and when was the last RFP?
Yes, we're excited. We just released a couple of weeks ago our subway RFP. And so we will start the process necessary to award that contract for the next fiscal year coming up. And then the year after, the street RFP will come out. They received a 1-year extension on their contract, so their RFP will come out, I believe, fiscal year 28, but the subway is for fiscal year 27, and that was just released. And so folks are now applying and going through the process to be awarded that contract.
Thank you. Sorry, bear with me here 1 second. Do you have any staff internally that work on maintenance or improvement of the system?
We do.
You do?
We
Okay.
do have a
How many?
street SWAT team. So when you say internally, do you mean internally to DHS or internally?
DHS or HRA staff?
Yes, DHS has it's DSS. They have a team. The last I heard, and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, was 8 to 10 people who work on Street Smart. Yes.
Okay. And, okay. Are there any capital projects in the preliminary capital commitment plan related to this system?
The last I heard, there were none.
There is some money that could help with the mobile.
Okay. Keith is saying that there is some money that could help with the mobile capital project money, but it has to be applied for.
Okay. Some. Can you maybe follow up and let us know?
Yes.
How much? Okay. And generally, how many DHS or HRA staff currently work on IT projects related to DHS technology systems, upgrades, and maintenance?
I think that's the number we'll have to get back to you on.
Okay. And what are the number of vacant DHS IT positions? You can follow up.
Yes.
And the budget for those DHS IT positions in FY26
Got
would
it.
also be
Follow
great
up.
to have. Great.
Got it.
Thank you. And does DHS use contracted technology services?
Yes, we do.
Okay, for which systems and with which vendors?
We would have to follow up on which vendors,
Okay,
but all systems are using contractors, but we can get the information
all
about the
systems.
vendors.
So
Yes.
there's no internal or internally owned sort of or run. I mean, I guess you have staff that runs and manages and maintains them, but it's none of it is owned by the city.
We'll get back to you on that.
Okay. And when you get back to me, I would love to also know why the decision was made to use an external vendor in these instances. Is it because we don't have the ability or we don't have the money or
Got it.
what's the reason why we're using so many outsourced software systems?
No, they will get back to you.
Okay, great.
One point of clarification, so DHS staff send in their emails with client information immediately. For our contractor outreach providers, the monitor team said the information is usually put in the same day, but they have a maximum of 48 hours to upload client information in the system of record.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you all so very much. I'm the last person standing, so there are no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be right back for public testimony. Alrighty, thanks for everyone's patience. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I want to remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on introductions 139 and 232 and the 3 pre-considered bills on our agenda. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. And the first panel. We can change the time to 3 minutes, okay? The first panel is Allison Wilkie, Julia Casey, Chris Mann, and Catherine Trapani.
Get started? Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Allison Wilkie. I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Strategic Campaigns with the Coalition for the Homeless. Thank you, Chair, for holding this hearing, and thank you for the Council for really caring about people who are unsheltered and providing oversight for what the city is doing to help people who are unsheltered and also to help those who are seeking shelter. I'm going to focus my comments on some of the specific bills here. Starting with Intro 232 to reduce the required housing history. The Coalition for the Homeless and the Legal Aid Society support all efforts to reduce the amount of housing history required by people seeking shelter. Just some numbers here from January 2025. So only 35.2% of families with children who sought shelter from DHS were deemed eligible during the month of January. And on top of that, 38% of families applying for shelter in January had to submit 2 or more applications before being found eligible, and 5% had to submit 4 or more applications. And while people are given temporary placements while eligibility is determined, during that period, they remain ineligible for benefits like city FEPs or other things that could help speed them out of shelter. So speeding up the eligibility determination can have a materially positive effect on the amount of time it takes for people to get those resources in place. We would note that reducing the housing history from 2 years to 1 year would align it for the adult families system for people without children, which only requires a 1-year housing history. And I think it would, help people access shelter, or families in particular access shelter better. While DHS said that they don't require a lot of documentation, the reality is that a lot of families seeking shelter have been moving around for, some time before they finally go to the shelter system. And so really providing that documentation can be quite difficult for families that have been bouncing around. Speaking to intros 1352 and 1353, the pre-considered intros, we support all efforts to, for DHS and hospitals to coordinate more, but we would really urge the council to go a step further and require that outreach workers go to hospitals and staff hospitals during code blue, code red, and code gray events. That would solve some of the issues with the time, and hospitals trying to discharge people. DHS workers could also then bring supplies with them during, while they're staffing that shift, eliminating some of the issues that DHS raised. And we would support an expanded list of supplies that outreach workers have on them at all time, not just during code blue and code red, but all the time. This is part of, meeting people where they're at and developing relationships of trust by actually bringing them and being able to offer people the things that they need in that moment. So I will stop there. We're going to submit written joint testimony
Great.
with Legal Aid Society, and Mr. Goldfein will clean up anything that I missed.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to have a question or two after. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Julia Casey, and I'm a senior policy analyst at the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. I want to thank Chair Hudson and members of the committee for the opportunity to provide testimony. And we are here today in support of proposed legislation, intro number 0139, which would require the Department of Social Services to provide a benefits interview confirmation notice. Over the past several years, we have conducted research to better understand the challenges that New Yorkers face in accessing benefits. And as part of this work, our 2024 report shares findings from a series of interviews we conducted with New Yorkers who receive cash assistance. Participants provided extensive accounts of the barriers they have experienced while trying to access this program. And among them are the barriers related to the eligibility and recertification interviews. New York City data from fiscal year 2024 shows that more than 108,000 cases were denied because an applicant was unable to complete the eligibility interview. And this represents the largest category of all cases denied. And in addition, more than 23,000 cases were closed because the recipient was unable to complete the recertification interview. One of the New Yorkers we spoke with, who started receiving cash assistance after she became homeless, reported that she lost benefits because her caseworker forgot to document that she had completed the recertification interview. And as a result, she and her young daughter went without benefits for over a month and a half, during which time they struggled to afford food and other necessities. Another participant reported extensive challenges with the recertification process, and at the time we had spoke with him, he had not received his benefits from the previous month, despite having done 3 separate recertification interviews. Thus, if the proposed legislation were enacted, these individuals would have received confirmation within 24 hours of their interview, and failing to receive such a notice would have alerted them to follow up with a case manager. They also would have had the opportunity to potentially rectify any issues earlier in the process, which may have prevented them from losing benefits or having to repeat steps in the process to apply. While this change may seem simple, we recommended it in our previous report because applicants and recipients of cash assistance, as well as many advocates we spoke with, recounted numerous instances in which staff neglected to log interviews and the applicant was never informed, and this resulted in New Yorkers being wrongly denied benefits or recipients having their cases erroneously closed. In addition, we also heard a number of different but related issues related to the interview process. And so we look forward to working with the council to not only pass the proposed legislation, but also to address some of the other access and retention barriers in the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine from Volunteers of America, Greater New York. Before I get into my testimony, and we have submitted written for the record, I just want to thank you, Chair Hudson, for the clarifications made about the questions regarding our Street to Home program. We went from, oh no, that program's not running anymore, to, of course, we're sending you referrals all the time. So I think you can see this hearing really brought out this disconnect that we have, and really the orientation of street outreach teams continuing to exclusively function in emergency mode instead of being able to do 2 things at once and help people to get stable. And I think we need to address that. So I look forward to the follow-up and sincerely thank you for the real-time kind of corrections and so on. But onto the legislation for today and what I have prepared testimony about. Certainly want to underscore our support for the legislation that would provide receipts to help people follow up with the HRA appointments. So we support Intro 139. For Intro 232, the team at our Family Shelter Division would like to thank you for this legislation. The families that are in conditional status at the Volunteers of America shelters that we operate are really struggling to meet all of the documentation requirements, and cycling through, multiple reapplications is just really disruptive. So I think the additional time in conditional up to 30 days, plus the reduction of the required housing history will just make that bar easier to meet and very pragmatic. So I think it's a common sense solution that will really make the system function better. And so we thank you for that. I also have extensive comments on the pre-considered introduction regarding the mobile application for Street Smarts. I think the intent is right. I don't know that it goes far enough. There are so many overlapping and disparate teams that are conducting street outreach that merely codifying a mobile version of Street Smart probably isn't enough to overcome all of that. So I think it's a really important first step. But in the written testimony that I probably don't have time to go through, we sort of did a little mini case study for the council saying, like, if this person is outreached during a shift by these 5 different organizations, it is highly likely that no one staff member trying to support that individual will know what the others are doing. And so in addition to real-time updates in a mobile app, I think we also need to really look at requiring data sharing agreements across agencies and ensuring that those agencies not only have read access to Street Smarts, but can also input their own notes into the app, which is currently not possible on the current desktop application. So just really thinking through how we can make sure that our safety net has no holes and that we're doing this robust care for folks that are attempting to access the life-saving shelter and housing supports that groups like mine offer, and really looking forward to working with the council and figuring all this stuff out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Hudson, members of the General Welfare Committee, for the opportunity to testify. My name is Chris Mann. I'm the AVP of Policy and Advocacy at WIN, which is the largest provider of shelter and supportive housing for families with children in New York City. Tonight alone, nearly 3,600 children will sleep in a WIN shelter. Reforming the PATH Intake Center is a top priority for our clients. They find the current process to be grueling and traumatic, and the biggest hurdle they face is having to prove their housing history. Families in acute crisis fleeing domestic violence, lockouts, or street homelessness often cannot produce 2 years of paper documentation. Because of this, 43% of our families last year had to apply for shelter multiple times. One family had to apply 20 times to shelter. Instead of getting help, families are stuck in conditional status, forced to reapply at PATH every 10 days, which is in person after the first reapplication. So they can reapply once from shelter, but then they have to go back. Luckily, they don't have to bring their kids anymore. Thank you, City Council. It takes an average of 41 days for families to be found eligible. One family at WIN waited 314 days. Without shelter eligibility, families cannot access rental assistance like city FEPs, and these bureaucratic bottlenecks trap families in shelter for much longer than they need to be there. We urge the City Council to pass Intro 232, and we thank you, Chair Hudson, for sponsoring that legislation. We also urge the Council to pass accompanying legislation to allow families to attest to their housing history as well, and create a virtual shelter intake process so they don't have to continue to go back to PATH. It's time to ease the burdens for families during the most traumatic moments of their lives. And again, we thank you for the opportunity to testify on this.
Thank you. Can you just, without getting into too much detail, can you tell me why a family would have to wait 314 days or apply, was it 20 or 30 times?
20 times.
20 times? Like what the issue is there?
So usually the issue is that a third party can't verify their housing history. So they have told DSS what their housing history is, but DSS can't independently verify that, so they get stuck in this loop where they've said that this is where they lived, but because DSS can't verify it, then they're just stuck in conditional status.
I mean, from my perspective, if you're let me rephrase and say, I have not yet met somebody clamoring to get into the shelter system.
Absolutely not.
So, given that if a family is applying for shelter and we know they're therefore without housing, and DSS is saying they can't verify the previous address or whatever, maybe we should just let them into the shelter system regardless.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. Hold on, sorry, let me keep track of my questions. Catherine, to your knowledge, is data sharing included in RFPs?
It would depend on which RFP. So this is actually the problem with the many different agencies that have decided to put their hat in the ring to do street homelessness. So for the DHS DHS outreach RFPs, they are required to participate in Street Smarts and share data with DHS. I don't have the knowledge to answer your question of what H&H, for example, requires if they're bidding their work out, or SOS, Safe Options Supports, or like any of the other SHAP, which is a volunteer-led group. Like, I feel like there's just a lot of cooks in this kitchen. And so, one, I don't know that it's the best use of resources. I think we're all paying for duplicative services that don't really improve outcomes. So that's just sort of problem A. But I think government could work better together to sort of talk to their counterparts that are releasing their RFPs to see if they could come up with something. But I don't know what the state requires. I don't know if my fellow panelists do.
Okay. Thank you. And then Allison, do you know if there are any additional services or resources that folks are eligible for while deemed ineligible for shelter?
No, I mean, I think one of the issues that we see from people coming to our crisis program is there actually isn't even enough, like sufficient enough help at PATH for people managing that intake process. So people are often lost, immediately on it. But until you're found eligible for shelter.
Wait, hold on a second. There's not enough help
from DHS staff.
From DHS staff.
Yeah, who man, the PATH system. Like, we do have people come into our office with, a lot of questions and not really clear what's going on, not clear why their first application was denied. And I mean, a point I wanted to make is that while we support creating more digital systems, those are definitely not a substitute for like live in-person help and increasing the amount of help that people get at PATH to try and navigate these eligibility determinations. But while someone is in a temporary placement, you're not eligible for rental assistance and other programs that will help you leave shelter.
Okay. I'm like a little baffled because, DSS claims that there's so many staff members and there's so much help and there's so many resources, particularly at intake centers, that doesn't jive with clients saying they're leaving, without a clear understanding of what's going on or the status of their case or what they might be eligible for, et cetera, et cetera.
But yeah, we get those families in our office trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know if others want to.
Yeah, it diverts a lot of resources. So when a family has a conditional placement, they're living with us, even though they're not technically eligible. And so our case management staff at our shelter have had to become expert at eligibility because there really isn't the support at the PATH Center. And so when we should be helping a parent plan for her future, moving on to permanent housing, we find ourselves really trying to help them navigate this complex process of essentially proving a negative.
Right.
Because you have to prove that there isn't a place.
Right.
Which is really hard to do, particularly as Allison testified. Our folks, it's rarely a straight line to shelter from your past stable residence. I mean, people do everything to try not to have to resort to the shelter system. So it's often a really winding road where you're sort of cashing in every favor that you can, and it's very difficult to document that. So certainly surprised to hear that people will just take like a DMV card as proof of residency that's unexpired. That's certainly not been the experience of the folks in our shelter. If they're doing that, that's phenomenal, but that's just not what we see. And our case managers spend quite a bit of time trying to support PATH applications.
Okay, one thing that I'm particularly interested in is streamlining a lot of these systems and making it easier for people to get benefits, particularly when we know that they're eligible for said benefits. And so would love to, just hear from you all, not in this moment, but we can follow up, about ideas and, that you have and ways that we can further enhance the systems that we have to make sure that people are getting connected more efficiently to the benefits. So thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Okay, the next panel is Brandon Lloyd, Graham Horn, Joshua Goldfein, and Lucy Carney.
Good afternoon, Chair Hudson and members of the Committee on, excuse me, on General Welfare. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Brandon Lloyd, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs at the Urban Resource Institute, also known as URI. URI is the largest provider of domestic violence shelter services in the nation and a leading provider of transitional housing for families across New York City. Every day, we create pathways to safety, stability, and healing for survivors of domestic violence and families in crisis. I'd also like to thank Council Members Hudson and Lewis for their continued leadership and partnership on behalf of our residents in their districts. URI is proud to operate shelters in both of their communities, and we deeply appreciate their ongoing support for the families and the pets that we serve. On any given night, URI has the capacity to provide safe and stable housing to nearly 4,000 residents at one of our 24 shelter locations. We also provide residents with access to comprehensive wraparound services, including case management, housing placement support, and educational services for children to help families stabilize and move towards permanent housing. URI strongly supports Intro 232, which would improve the process by which families with children are assessed and referred for temporary housing assistance. Families who arrive at PATH and Take Center are often in the midst of profound crisis. Many are fleeing domestic violence, unsafe living conditions, or sudden housing instability. In these moments, bureaucratic barriers can prolong trauma and delay access to safety. Intro 232 takes meaningful steps to remove these barriers while maintaining program integrity. By reducing the required housing history from 2 years to 1 year, this bill recognizes the reality that families in crisis may not have access to extensive documentation, especially when leaving unsafe homes. It also ensures that families with children can remain in temporary shelter for at least 30 days, while their eligibility is assessed, providing critical stability during a period of uncertainty. The bill's requirement that the New York City's Department of Homeless Services maintain digital case records and notify applicants electronically about missing documentation is another significant improvement. Clear communication and accessible records can prevent unnecessary delays, reduce repeated intake visits, and allow families to better navigate a complex system at a time when they are already under immense stress. For families experiencing housing instability, regardless of the reason, crucial time matters. Every additional day spent navigating unclear procedures or gathering documentation can mean prolonged exposure to danger or homelessness. This uncertainty is particularly challenging for children, who makes up 60% of folks in our shelters. Intro 232 represents a practical, compassionate reform that will make the system more transparent, more efficient, and more responsive to the realities families face when seeking shelter. Thank you. URI is proud to support this legislation, and we respectfully urge the Council to pass Intro 232 to ensure families with children can access emergency housing quickly and with dignity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can go to Graham.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chair Hudson.
Can you just lean into the microphone, please?
Sure, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Hudson, staff, members who were here before. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for these bills under consideration. My name is Graham Horn. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a coordinating attorney with the Shelter and Economic Stability Project at New York Legal Assistance Group. I just want to start by saying, Chair Hudson, I can't thank you enough for 232. I've dealt supported so many families through this application process at PATH. These changes would make such a difference in their lives and their ability to access, as many of the members of the former panel suggested, access to city FEPs, all the things that we understand to help these families that are held from them while this process goes on. I don't have a number to compete with Chris Mann's, whatever, 360 days it was, but I have had many clients over half a year waiting for this. And Chris was suggesting the ways in which it can be related to third parties failing to respond, basically, which ends up being labeled the family as non-cooperative
Right.
in the process. I have seen cases where DHS paths just mislabeled. There is a date match problem between the documents submitted and the documents that they put in their system. So they have a date range of March 15th to April 27th for a housing placement that on the letter says March 15th to April 25th. And that is enough to kick it out of the system and cause, and the same communication problems we were hearing about where the families aren't told this. It isn't specifically said to them. All you have
Right.
to do is either have the letter changed to match the dates we have in our system, or we have to change the dates in our system to match your letters, which is obviously the way that it should work. But oftentimes we feel the problem is that the people who our clients are interacting with face-to-face at PATH don't have the ability or the wherewithal, whatever it is, to change the dates in the system such that they just keep being asked to apply again. And I also want to emphasize the fact that, as has been said before, if a family were not in fact homeless, in need of shelter, we don't believe that they would be coming and trying to access a shelter system. So we also think that there should be no eligibility process of this housing history nature in order for families to enter shelter, just as it is in the single adult system. And if there need to be eligibility investigations, DHS should perform them in a different way, first by complying with its duty to assist applicants in obtaining the necessary documentation. And also we would support a system that would allow for self-attestation, at least as proof of street homelessness, which they also need documentary evidence to prove within that 2-year period they've been on the
Right.
street. A family experiencing homelessness who is found ineligible for shelter will continue to be homeless. And instead, by passing this bill and other methods to improve that eligibility process, we can help families move into stable and permanent housing. So I thank you very much for that and for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll work towards no eligibility,
Well, this is
but this is a good step in the right direction.
Definitely.
Joshua.
Thank you, Chair.
you.
Thank you, staff and members. My name is Josh Goldfein. I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society. I use he, him pronouns. As you heard earlier, we will be submitting joint written testimony with our client, Coalition for the Homeless. We are in support, at least in spirit, of all the bills on the agenda today. We have some notes that you'll see in our written comments on some of them technically. I just want to highlight in particular, as Allison testified earlier, there is the department recognizes 3 categories of emergency: code blue, as we've just experienced, code red, which is coming up, and also they have a code gray for when air quality is hazardous, which we're very concerned is going to become an increasing feature of our city, and as we've seen. We also really want to thank the committee again. In these hearings, just through your questioning, we have learned so much today, for instance, about the Street to Home program, but in also about the WARM program at the hearing on the Code Blue events earlier. And we actually would not have known about that had you not asked those questions. That has led to a series of meetings with H&H and others about that program and how it worked. And it demonstrated that that was, in fact, a far superior model than the way outreach has been conducted in the past. And a key feature of that is not just that the staff were able to provide the kind of support and supplies that previously outreach contractors were not able to offer to people, but also because they had direct access to low barrier bed placements. And so when you can offer somebody something that they want, like a bed or permanent housing even, that is what really is necessary to make the difference. I think that Councilmember Nurse was asking about this earlier in regard to the barriers to getting people into supportive housing. And similarly, we see that with the outreach programs, if they can, they can approach the person, they can try to build a relationship of trust. If they don't have a low barrier bed to offer them, the people are not going to come off the street. And former Commissioner Park acknowledged this in her recent exit interview with City and State. She specifically said, that one of the obstacles to getting the people off the street is the lack of having these low barrier beds, which is the thing that people want, and that's what they're looking for. So, we have seen, thanks to your hearings, a much better model, but the key is really to provide housing to people, whether it's short-term, low barrier beds, or supportive housing, or permanent affordable housing in the community. That's really what we're going to need to solve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy.
Hello and good afternoon, Committee Chair Hudson and members of the committee. My name is Lucy Carney. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a licensed master social worker and residential social worker at Encore Community Services, where I work directly with homebound older adults in supportive housing on Manhattan's West Side. I'm here today to talk about food, specifically the gap between what the city funds and what homebound older New Yorkers actually need to stay healthy and be able to stay home. The city currently funds 1 meal a day, 5 days a week. Older adults have come to rely on this program and supplemental meals from crucial partners like City Meals on Wheels. But I can tell you from personal experience that for too many older adults, this program has gaps. For the people I work with, that gap is dangerous. Long stretches without a meal worsen chronic conditions, interfere with medications that need to be taken with food, and force people to make impossible choices about what little funds they have. I realize that this issue may seem off topic for today's hearing, but I understand and see that this is relevant to everything I heard in today's hearing. On a personal note, I worked at the Paul's Place Safe Haven on 14th Street a few years back, and now I work in a supportive housing site in the Times Square area. And I've seen how prioritizing housing in the Housing First model in the safe haven placement has given older adults hope to gain safety, stabilization, and the freedom to focus on deeper fulfillment in their lives. But how can one really focus on expanding their lives when they have 5 out of 21 meals a week accounted for and secured? So right now we fill that gap with private charity. Organizations like City Meals on Wheels do extraordinary work, and we are very grateful. But we should be clear-eyed about what that arrangement means. The city has defined its obligation narrowly and then relied on nonprofits and donors to quietly cover what it won't. We can do more. Our ask is straightforward. Fund home-delivered meals 7 days a week at the true cost of delivering them. Every day, not 5 out of 7. The research on this is unambiguous. Consistent nutrition keeps older adults out of hospitals, out of nursing facilities, and living independently longer. That saves the city money and, more importantly, keeps people fed. New York City has an opportunity in the 2027 fiscal year budget to make a real commitment here, and we urge the council to press for it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I'd like to just ask a question, and anyone can answer. But in the city's testimony, they said that shelter capacity across the city would need to be increased for families with children as a result of my bill, Intro 232. And so I'm wondering if you can maybe speak to that and give your perspective on why you think they might claim that shelter capacity would need to be increased.
I was pretty surprised by that answer because I took it as an admission that people are not becoming eligible and are being lost, essentially, because they're unable to navigate this process. And if we make the process, more accessible to them, we will have to serve more people. And I thought that was a pretty remarkable response.
Right. And we're currently not serving all of the people with the need. So
we know that, yes.
Right,
And then if you look at the number of people who are doubled up, people who are staying in dangerous situations, people who are calling the domestic violence shelter hotline and being told, I'm sorry, there are no beds available. You could go to the regular Department of Homeless Services system tonight, and then they don't. Because they wouldn't feel safe there. I mean, we know that there are many ways in which people are not being served because they're unable to get through the system.
Thank you. Anyone else to add anything? Yeah, okay. Great, thank you all so much for your testimony, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to virtual testimony. Please wait for your name to be called to testify, and please select unmute when prompted. We will start with Alexis Foote.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Committee on General Welfare. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Alexis Foote, and I'm the founder of the Rural Edgemere Community Land Trust, a community activist, a mom of 3, and a survivor of domestic violence at the hands of my husband. My estranged husband weaponized the New York City Police Department, the MTA, and his age to have me arrested. My estranged husband and I are in a horrible custody battle case for my 2 youngest children. My oldest child and I are living are living at the Community Housing Innovations that is getting paid $5,128 for Alexander and me. What I find disturbing is that there aren't any housing vouchers for families that are in the shelter. Human Resources, the Department of Homeless Services, the Department of Social Services all need to be fired, audited, and replaced with individuals that really want to take care of families like mine. My son and I have been in the shelter system for a year now because the system isn't working for our best interest. I'm very disappointed with the following agencies: Human Resources, Department of Homeless Services. I have been on the phone line trying to do my recertification so me and Alexander could stay here, and I've been on the phone for more than 5 hours. The system has reported that I've been non-compliant. Right now, I'm fighting to get a voucher, and they say that because me and Alexander make too much, we don't qualify for city FEPS. The computers, equipment, software kits all need to be updated to service the clients and make life easy for the employees. Not only are the clients stressed out, but the employees that work for the shelters that I've been in, like Acacia, Community Housing Innovations, they are stressed because every time they try to do something, CARES either locks them out or everybody else who's in the shelter system is trying to use CARES. We are being told to use our own money to move out the shelter or soda because there's not enough city vouchers doesn't meet the needs of families like mine. It is 2026, and there should be several types of housing vouchers and home ownership programs supporting the city's most vulnerable residents and homeowners in New York City. The governor needs to fund the more housing vouchers. She needs to open up Section 8. A lot of families like mine and immigrant families are not going to get housing if we do not get Section 8 vouchers. Landlords do not want to deal with soda. Not only that, family court, housing court, and criminal court also have a part in why I believe there's a lot of street homeless adults. And I say that as somebody who was in the foster care system and ended up being homeless at 17 because my mother kicked me out, and me and my beautiful birth mother, we reunited. And that's another thing. My mom was one of your vulnerable populations, and you let her down when you allowed my husband to arrest me and her feeling like she was reliving her life. Not only that, I had to be her case manager when it came to finding her and her spouse housing. And honestly, they're both gone.
Time expired.
Okay, I'll put everything else in testimony.
Yeah,
Thank
you can submit it via
Online.
email. Thank you so much, though, for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hudson. This means so much to me and my families that are in the shelter. We want to get out. We want housing, and I'm not here because I want to be. I'm not here because I want to be.
I know that. I know that to be true. And we will follow up with you, and please do submit the rest of your testimony in writing. And thank you for sharing. Christopher Leon Johnson.
You may begin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair Hudson. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I support every bill on the ticket, but I want to make this clear that going forward, I think like next week, I think in the next few weeks, I know you'll be asking the new DSS commissioner about everything that they need for the budget. I believe that the DSS need to start going forward and requesting that the city council introduce a bill to make it where that the nonprofits are no longer allowed to um, issue out city FEPs and city FEP vouchers to prospective tenants, because a lot of corruption that's going on, and they only going to hand them out to the people that they believe that's going to be able to push their agendas on at these rallies and these steps at City Hall, mainly Vocal New York and Canberra. There's a lot of these nonprofits that do it. Going forward, like the only way you can really solve street homelessness is really dedicating housing to people that are houseless, and I think this should be a big priority for that. Instead of, when it comes to affordable housing, they need to be a real priority for people that are homeless in the city of New York. Why is it only when it comes to affordable housing, they only prioritize the people that really just get these people to let the city a political office? And it's all political. So going forward, look, this is a big process when it comes to solving the homeless issue in New York City and worldwide. But start in this budget, I believe that this will be the end of the nonprofit industrial complexes control of city FEPs and any of these other vouchers in the city of New York. I'm not against it. I'm not against supportive housing. I'm not against anything like that. But I'm against these nonprofits that does nothing for the city, while they take away the money, while the people that are homeless suffer, or the people that are on the verge of homelessness suffer. And going forward, the city council needs to start asking the former speaker, Christy Quinn, what justifies her making over $500,000 as a CEO of Win NYC, while the people that live in those shelters, they call guests, suffer every day, where there's no hope of getting out the shelter system. You know, when you're out the shelter system is you're on the street, or the MTA subway. I mean, Long Island Railroad subway. So it shouldn't be like that in New York City, where people have, the only way you're safe is sleeping on the floor of Grand Central Station as a homeless person. It's more safe on the streets than it's safe inside the shelter system. There's a big process with that, and I support everything, and I hope that you chair do the right thing. Unlike the last chair, Diane Aya didn't do anything, who just appeasing the speaker and the people suffering. So I hope that next week or the few weeks after, when we have these hearings, preliminary budget hearings, that this be rectified, this be axed by you, Chair Hudson. And like I said, stop all these nonprofits, stop the NPIC, like Vocal New York and Canberra, from running the city, because the people are suffering because of these nonprofits.
Time expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to say for the record that I am proud to follow in the footsteps of Councilmember Ayala, who chaired this committee before I did. Thank you to everyone who has testified. If there's anyone present in the room or on Zoom that has not had the opportunity to testify, please raise your hand. Seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you so much to everyone who testified today. Thanks to the administration and all the advocates and service providers. As is usually the case, we always learn something new from these hearings. And so I just want to encourage everybody, including members of the public, to continue to engage with the New York City Council and show up to these hearings so that we can continue to glean much more information. Thank you so much, and this hearing is adjourned.